Yeah.
It's yeah, we have no idea. I have not made goods for the last 4 months, even when we came back, because everything is on cash now. And I don't have the cash. How do I buy fabric? I can't make my pipeline is drying up. So really, it's a bit desperate now. We have to do something, and it has to be collective. The banks can't do it alone. The RBI can't do it alone. Government has to step in. I don't know how, because I'm following the Supreme Court case very closely, and I get very disappointed when I hear the government say that, or Mr. Mehta say that fiscal discipline will get affected. How much more disciplined can we be? I think we've been model citizens. And like I said earlier, I was very lucky that I was a registered MSME and I had a track history. But I hear the other panelists, and there's a lot of pain there. If you've started, we are the brand,
Just for 30
that
years.
we have is new for 30 years and 23 years in exports. I built assets, and I thought it's a good time, that we build this is a legacy brand. I would like to boast. This brand is being accepted anywhere in the world. I'm able to sell the exact same thing that an Indian audience buys to Western audiences across the world. We are innovating new products every day. We've created this wonderful mask, which can be used medical, non-medical. I can't get it off the ground. I just don't have the resources. That's my problem.
Sure, Sangeeta. No, so, and
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, since ours was very high asset-based organizations, where we have to anyway keep collaterals, the land collaterals to the banks. And initially, we started pledging our personal properties for the banks, and slowly we started moving the cold store assets as a pledge, and then we build the organization like that. We have multiple cold stores in plus temperatures. But when it comes to this company, which I started last year along with one of the partners, 2019, this is entirely different, where we have to move into the smaller segment of servicing, like the control temperature boxes. We designed those boxes for the last mile deliveries into tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Now there is a lot of R&D went into that. R&D investments, it's completely from our personal money. So there was nothing, you can't go and approach a bank or anyone for the R&D investment. So a lot of money went into that. And when we were able to take out the product, and we realized that this COVID scenario, we will have a great opportunity, because the vaccines distribution can happen in these controlled temperature boxes. Yeah, and it has trackers, so you can track the temperatures across the transit. So it gets connected to a gateway and all that stuff. So now it is a launch. We have actually tested the product, and we are doing testing with some of the pharma companies. And then my problem is that it's mostly a single man show with a couple of guys, where we spend most of the time in marketing and trying to introduce the product to multiple companies. Going behind banks, we have to dedicate a guy doing that activity. And we thought, let us get the product out and then get into the banking scenario. We had made an attempt initially, but again, the same thing, what collateral you will provide. I said, CGTMSE you want to go because it's an MSME registered organization. But they said, and there is help from your organization also, that let us put it to some of these banks, public sector banks. Private sector banks said, no, unless until you have 3 years balance sheet, we will not even consider you. So I think we will put an honest effort after this testing and everything is done, so that we showcase some of the orders to the banks, saying that now we need funding to take this off the ground.
So that's an interesting point. Yeah. Sudhakar, that is extent.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's to you shared of your experiences?
Yeah, so basically, this is my second company actually. Before this, the Break Free brand of mine, sportswear brand, I also was doing a consulting job where I used to consult various MSME companies, help them with their basically restructuring, the inventory management and ERP system placement and all, vendor management and all was my core competency, strategy and how to develop the supply chain and improve their efficiency programs. So based on that, I made some income and I decided to open my own brand. As I said, I realized that being an athlete myself all my life, I saw there's a huge gap between the sportswear that is available in India, as well as the knowledge and the requirement of what the women in India require. Most of the sportswear are like Nike, Adidas, a good sportswear, which we're talking about, and are basically always focused on men, and their main core competency in the product has always been shoes. Okay, and but nothing is being created in taking care into consideration of women in India. Fortunately, my book gave me an audience, and I was able to talk to women across the country. When my book went well, I got a chance to travel, give a lot of motivation lectures and seminars across the country. And based on that, a lot of women, when you start coming back and saying that, what, we also want to look good and run so long like you do, or become an athlete, but we do not have the care. And I could definitely resonate with it because I myself come from a small city called Amritsar. And even there, I remember we used to never have, sportswear to wear. Being an athlete, a national level lawn tennis player, I definitely could afford. I'll be very clarify that. But, it was never available to us. So fortunately, we would fit into the, our fathers. My mom being the doctor, she still knew how to stitch, and she would cut the corners out to make sure we are able to fit. So realizing the gap, exactly, I had to innovate. And just like innovation, like Mr. Sudhakar said, is cost comes with a cost. And I do not come from a supportive background. I come from a service class background, and I did not had any collateral, so no banks gave me loans. So fortunately, my husband is a working banker, and I'm an ex-banker myself. My company account is so the ex-bank where I was working only actually opened my my current account for me, and that's how I became a proprietor. And fortunately, I was able to run. But now I don't think any bank will give any more further loan to my husband because he's exhausted the personal loan limit. And we started the brand off. But the first year, the 3-year-old brand, the business was pretty doing well. In 2019, 18, 19, we were able to basically break even, and whatever the new generation of line, just like Sanjita has been saying, and all the other players in the retail have been trying to say, Priyanka, that we are dependent on the stock creation every time. And unfortunately, in India, like I am developing something in a sports. Like we are in India, the sports is a not developed industry, manufacturing. So I'm dependent on imports. So every time the dollar prices goes high, so does my heartbeat. And the customs has not been very kind to us, thanks to the border restrictions. These are all the economic dynamics the globally which affect any importer or a trader who is working in the country, because we do not, everyone is saying we are creating an ecosystem, but we still do not have. A creation is a very long period. But right now, every entrepreneur is struggling to sustain. So this was the first time I ever went to bank because I knew I will be rejected. But still, I thought I have a 3 years, performance to show, and probably government was saying Atmanirbhar, और हमने 20 करोड़ का लोन देना है, तो मैं बड़ी optimistic होके चल पड़ती कि शायद कोई लोन मिल जाए. But they say that the reality bites. So I was rejected by saying that I do not have a collateral, and the banks are not sanctioning the loans to the startups, especially the brands like just like we have too much cash flow going in developing of the product. Each product cost me developing in dollars. As I said, nothing is made in India. So only few products are made in India, but a major chunk is made overseas and in various countries. And I'm not dependent on one country, but another 4 or 5 countries like Vietnam, Taiwan, as well as China, and South Korea for the upcoming delivery as well. So we are dependent on them, and we don't get loan sanctioned easily. In fact, foreign transactions bhi itni mushkil hoti. So fortunately, I'm with my ex company, and my account is there. So that's being taken care of. And nobody helps the people like us, or
Sure.
I'm using my own income. मैं कभी lectures देखती हूँ या book की income आती है या इधर से उसी के पैसे से. But I can't run it anymore. I'm exhausted.
Correct.
Right now, it's just like Priyanka said, we're not looking for profits. We are just asking for
survival.
being afloat in the business. Yeah, that's the major concern, is that for a first-time lender or buyer or asking for the loan, we get.
How do you break it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Sumedha. I think what you're doing is very, very interesting, very niche, but hard to build. And I think the recognition, how do you get the banks to recognize this and structure a loan product or a credit accordingly to you is one question that we need to think about. Great, thanks. Let's get to Yukti.
Yeah. So while we've been in the business of clothing and textiles for more than 20 years, it's only in 2017 that we invested our savings and launched our own brand. 6 months after launching, I went to the banks in order to be able to grow this. At that point in time, they said you need to have 2 years of profitable financials to show us. So we said, okay, we will stay small and continue to build. 3 years hence, which is in January 2020, when we were profitable and I went to the banks for a secured loan, they came back saying that, your profits are not sufficient to repay the loan, hence we will not sanction it to you. Although the value of the collateral was 5x that of the loan amount that I was raising. They came back saying that we were willing, post-COVID, during the lockdown, we were willing to mortgage our own house. But they said, we are not interested in your house. We want a surety of you to repay the loan. So we said, okay, since that avenue is out and it was necessary to survive, we heard there was a lot of news about MSME and incentives to them. But as retailers, and I speak for retailers as a collective, we don't qualify under MSME because neither are we manufacturers or service providers.
Correct.
This was something that we had taken up with Mr. Nitin Gadkari 6 months back, and we have to get updates. We then, opted for, or rather we sought out options where fintech companies were giving credit under credit against credit card swipes, but with a 24% interest rate. It was absolutely not feasible to opt for such a high interest rate. And in the current scenario, the retail business has moved online. But the challenge is that while our vendors ask us for an upfront advance, marketplaces pay us after 30 to 45 days. And very often they hold back a lot of the remittances that they owe us, citing holding it back for returns or not receiving the money from the end customer or a host of other reasons. I think as retailers as a whole, there is a huge crunch and also initiatives required to ensure that we continue to exist either in the brick and mortar avatar or the online avatar.
Sure. Interesting. Thank you. I think, you're also talking about the classification of MSMEs and how do you expand the ambit and how do you get the banks, and it's I've heard several conversations with bankers on similar lines saying that, listen, your balance sheet and P&L does not support this loan, and if you back it up with collateral, then the whole aspect comes in. So how do you, it also comes down to one of the things that you're saying, how do you build relationships and how do you establish the trust to say that these are people worthy of providing a loan, right? And how can the bank